title, Reorienting the Veil, wants to emphasize that we need to get beyond the stereotypical representations of the veil and explore some research that is done by an interdisciplinary group of scholars that addresses the very different meanings and practices of veiling that are beyond those stereotypes.
There was a lot of discussion today about veiling and fashion and modesty and the differences between countries. Your specialty is Turkey, is that right?
Yes.
So what have you noticed, what has changed in Turkey as far as veiling practices?
In Turkey, since the 1980s, veiling practices has changed quite a bit, and it is actually very similar to what one speaker, Carla Jones, an anthropologist from University of Colorado, described happening in Indonesia. In Turkey, like in Indonesia, in the 1980s, the veiling styles of especially the urban young women were much more muted colors, boxier overcoats, but providing much more coverage than a headscarf that is traditionally just tied under the chin in a knot. But in the 1990s, something really big happened. And in 1992, one of the companies in Turkey organized its first fashion show and for the first time put veiling on the catwalk. And with that, there was a flood of actually innovation in veiling fashion. And we saw the emergence of new colors that were never seen before. And the scarf style and patterns kept changing. So now you have actually seasonally changing scarf styles. And the rest of the outfit is also very much coordinated. There's a lot of care that goes into it. And it's also ever shifting. So every season there's a new coat that comes in fashion. There's a trendy way to wear the scarf. There's a new color that is popular. And you see it on the street. You see it in fashion shows that are now proliferating. You see it in catalogs, in advertisements, on videos that are posted, on commentaries. So there's a whole, flourishing veiling fashion industry in Turkey that is really pushing the boundaries of what veiling is and also what fashion is. So both are changing in the process.
Now, are women in Turkey, are they allowed to, for modesty's sake, cover the skin, but do they have to hide their shape?
It depends. There's a wide variance. So some women feel that it's really important to hide the shape of the body if you are veiled. And similarly, they emphasize that muted colors should be muted. There shouldn't be any bright reds, bright colors that draws too much attention.
So that's a personal choice.
So it's seen as while they see it as much more of a better fulfillment or more fuller fulfillment of a religious requirement, not to draw attention to yourself, that they see as the purpose of veiling. But on the other hand, in the company, catalogs or on the streets, you actually see all kinds of, colors and styles. Some are quite, tight-fitting. Some are really colorful and really beautifully assembled. So there's a whole range. Age is a big factor, actually. A lot of women in our focus group interviews talk about age and see actually maybe fashions that wouldn't be appropriate for a middle-aged person, much more appropriate for a 20-year-old, someone in their teens. That would be tolerated, that's kind of living their youth, but maybe not so much expected or understood in the same way if the woman is older. So age is usually presented as one factor. Not the only one though, so you get a whole range of, it's really up for debate, and I think that was one of the main points that was coming out of this conference is all of this question about veiling and its intersection with fashion, faith, those are not resolved issues. It's actually very much ongoing questions and constant debates about, what is actually proper in terms of veiling.
Someone brought up makeup today, and they talked about halal makeup. Is this a big thing now with major cosmetic companies like L'Oreal and Yves Rocher?
Yeah, in Turkey, a lot of makeup is already halal, and so it's not specifically marked necessarily, but that's sometimes it is a concern, so it's becoming more marked. But similar to the case of Indonesia, there's a growing market of commodities that are presented as Islamic, from Islamic holiday villages to spas to gyms to cafes, novels, things like that. And makeup included in that, but not so much, I think, as Indonesia. So, and makeup is very much debated. In Turkey, most women talk about eye makeup being okay, like an eyeliner, if it's not too exaggerated, as being actually something acceptable. And they are often critical of lipstick, especially red lipstick. But again, you actually see women, even those among those whom we talk to, wearing heavier makeup, and in the catalogs there's usually quite heavy makeup, but usually pale lipstick. So the eye makeup could be really heavy, but the lipstick, there's something about the lips.
In Turkey?
In Turkey. Mm-hmm.
What about the feet? I know in Afghanistan, when I was living there, the women might be covered from head to toe, almost head to toe, and they were exposing their toes in the sandals, and they told me that they liked to wear the nail polish.
It's another topic that is very much debated in Turkey as well. So women are divided on that issue. Some think that it's completely okay to wear sandals, expose your feet and ankles usually, and maybe even wear nail polish. But others say it's actually nail polish prevents you from performing the prayer. You have to take it off and put it back on. It just seems too much work. And so some women are much more critical of it, saying that nail polish is actually not acceptable.
So one more question: we've seen the hijab become very fashionable. Like you said, on the catwalk in Turkey and Indonesia. What about women who aren't Muslim? Could this be a new fashion for them, or do you not see that at all?
I don't know. The company actually, the CEO of the biggest company in Turkey, prides himself with bringing back maxi dresses and maxi skirts, saying that is the influence of veiling fashion on the fashion for non-veiled women. But I don't know. I think, things come in and out of fashion. What was striking to me was in Berlin, though. I was at a conference in Berlin a couple years ago, and as we were walking around, we saw in a lot of boutiques that were in these, young, hip parts of Berlin that had interesting, boutiques. There were lots of headscarves, and worn, in a different style, but it was still like headscarf was part of the look. So that was really striking to us, and so maybe there can be some kind of an influence between the fashion for veiled women and fashion for non-veiled women.
And just as I was thinking of it, we saw a lot of cartoons today being presented, and about the headscarves in varying degrees being some kind of a prison. How prevalent of an attitude do you think that is now? And I don't mean in Muslim countries, but in non-majority Muslim countries. Do they believe that's a prison?
I think that is still, unfortunately, the most common stereotype is that the veil imprisons women, it oppresses them. So there's still a misunderstanding about what the veil means to women themselves, the women who wear these veils. So there's a refusal to recognize that women may be wearing it for many other reasons, and they're not necessarily oppressed.
So there isn't,
or more oppressed than other women.
So there isn't like a number one reason why someone wears the veil. It's all personal.
No, based on my research, I think I can confidently say that every woman whom I talked to said that they veil because of religious conviction. So that's the first thing. And then it becomes more of an open question about how they veil. So veiling is certainly a religious practice. It has a very important ethical component to it. So veiled women see it as a very important religious practice, not just as an expression of piety, but as a means to produce piety, as a way to cultivate Islamic virtue in yourself. But beyond that, how exactly, what kind of a style a woman chooses is actually opens up all kinds of questions about taste, that person's background, you know, how their own dispositions and other kinds of, you know, class issues and where they're located, their social circles. So all kinds of other things come into play.
Thank you.
Thank you.